Thank you, and good morning, good evening, good day, wherever you are. Welcome to the Muslim Women Speakers Friday Forum. Here we believe that you are either part of the solution or you are part of the problem. Today, in with us is Imam Salima El Musalima, a Moroccan born Muslim spiritual leader from the Sufi sect. She's a proud Sufi. She's a close friend. I remember meeting her, reading an article about her going to the Paris mosque and how she was not allowed to go into the mosque as an imama. And it was during that time, maybe my daughter is 22, when she was 13, we took her to Paris. I had taken my daughter to Paris to the same mosque, and they sent us to a dingy little place, and we couldn't even sit with dignity in that Paris mosque. And I had written an article, Are Muslim Women Welcome in the Paris Mosque? And we connected. And since then, Salima has been a spiritual teacher to me. The other day, somebody blasted me on Facebook. I wrote to Salima, Salima, what should I say? She said, take it easy, breathe. There's a lot of trauma going on. Do not respond to such hateful comments. So I'm so proud to introduce and welcome her. And also in the room is Anila Ali, who's the founder of the American Muslim Multi-Faith Women's Empowerment Council, who has been a galvanizing force in raising women's voices to address these challenges that we are facing, particularly anti-Americanism, anti-Semitism, and this unexplained hatred for the Jewish state. So our topic this morning will be, you are either part of this, I said that, will be the PLO, Hamas, and the Palestinian pay for slay. Is it un-Islamic? So we know the deadlier the attack, the richer the reward. The Palestinian Authority's policy of providing monthly financial stipends and rewards to Palestinians and their families who carry out bombings, stabbings, and other attacks against innocents has been rewarded. So, Imam Salima, you are a proud Sufi. Tell us about what it is to be a Sufi. And I want you to then talk about the letter you wrote to Mahmoud Abbas about the pay for slay. And you asked the question, why as a mufti and why are the religious leaders not speaking out against this pay for slay? And why also is the Muslim Ummah who so silent on this pay for slay? To you. Thank you.
Thank you, Soraya, for this very warm introduction. I'm so honored to be on your show because I know you as someone who's acting from the heart, and you are one of very few outspoken, very strong Muslim women that has done a lot of outreach, especially towards the Jewish community. And in this time, I think you are a leader in that aspect. So I'm very honored to call myself a very good friend of you. And you asked me about Mahmoud Abbas and his pay for slay procedure. I actually didn't know this. I think a lot of Muslims in the world don't know this. They don't know that the PLO, the Palestinian political organization that at this moment is seen by the world as the moderate Palestinian political entity, is actually radical as well. Because if you can, Hamas is the terrorists and they're outspoken about it. But the PLO says that they're not terrorists, but they are paying terrorists to do their dirty jobs. So I see two terrorist political organizations. I don't see a non-terroristic Palestinian partner to talk to. So I think this is very problematic for Israel and also for the world, because the whole world, loves the Palestinian people. We want to help them. We want to stop the bloodshed. But if we want to stop the bloodshed, we need to go to the basics. And the basics is that we need to stop the terror. Because as long as the terror is not stopped, Israel will do everything it can to stop it, even attack Gaza and kill a lot of people get killed in the process, innocent people, children. So we as normal, human beings, leaders in the Muslim community, if we want to do something, we need to do something that is durable. We need to do something that is peaceful and act from a place of power and not from a place of victim mentality. And I feel that a lot of Muslims and also a lot of, sadly, also Western leftist activists are acting from trauma and victim mentality and not acting as leaders that see themselves as part of the solution. And I think that what we try to do here is to act as Muslim leaders and not as Muslim victims. And
Thank you.
from that perspective, I wrote a letter to Mahmoud Abbas to call him to go back to a peaceful negotiations, because I feel that is the only way to fix this problem is by being peaceful. And as long as you're acting as an aggressor, as a supporter of terror, you cannot say that you are a peaceful party. Then you're not.
Mm. But Salima, quick question. Jihad is rewarded in traditional Islamic laws. You go to heaven or you get compensated. Martyrdom is seen as a gift from Allah. So, isn't the PLO, Palestinian Authority, doing that which is called for them to do?
Well, jihad, sadly, in the Western society, is equated with terror. And I see myself as a jihadist, but not from the Western perspective. I see it from the original Islamic perspective. And if you look back at the original term jihad, it begins with the great jihad, which is the jihad of the nafs, of the soul. You struggle in the soul to go to the light. It's a very introvert journey. It's not activist outside. The great jihad is to confront your own egos, to confront your own monsters. And I come from a Sufi country. Morocco practices Sufi Islam. For a long time, this has been the dominant religion in the world. I think Pakistan and Bangladesh have a very rich Sufi tradition. And sadly, this tradition has been taken over by Wahhabi and Salafi movements also in Southeast Asia, but the rest of the world. And Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt has been very powerful in spreading the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, which is not Sufi either. So the Sufi perspective is the original Islamic perspective. This was the dominant religion all over the world, from Morocco to Africa to Southeast Asia. And in the Sufi tradition, the real jihadists, the real warriors, my family belongs to that actually. I come from a long line of jihadists, are the ones that are practicing spirituality. That's the first thing you need to practice. If you want to do the work of God, you need to first clean up yourself before trying to spread the light. And so the jihad that is currently known as jihad in the Western world is not jihad, but it's terrorism. Because true jihad is actually a force of goodness. It's not attacking women and children. It's not waging war against civilians, blowing up buses and things like that. This is not jihad. My ancestors, my great grandfather, was a jihadist in Morocco. They fought against colonial Spain. And this was not done by attacking civilians in Spain. This was done by fighting in a war, soldier to soldier. And we were not the strongest party. We didn't have the weapons. We didn't have the amount of soldiers that they had. We just had farmers trying to defend their country. And we won. We were the first country. The Rifians, Berbers in the north of Morocco, were the first tribes to win over a colonial force. At that time, it was Spain. Spain was humiliated by us. And one of the generals committed suicide because he felt so ashamed that natives were, stronger than he is. This is what I see as jihad. To be honest, even what Gandhi did, who is widely known as peaceful activist, even what Martin Luther King did, who is known as a peaceful activist, that is not jihad, because they put vulnerable people, women and children, on the frontier to be, attacked by colonial force. Jihad
But
is,
but uh,
yeah.
Imam Musalim, I have to interrupt you here. jihad that you are speaking about is not a yoga today. It is, we can't blame that on the West, can we? The
No.
Muslim religious actors have perpetuated this and they have stayed silent. Well,
You
how
have,
do we reclaim the jihad that you are talking about?
I will respond to that. I think that jihad has never changed, but I think it got hijacked by terrorist organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood. Because we have Yusuf al-Qaradawi, the former leader, spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, who said it is part of jihad to attack women and children in Israel. He changed the language of what jihad is. So any group that follows the Muslim Brotherhood, which has become a very big political entity, we don't even know how big they are because they're now active in the West as well. They are now equating terrorism with resistance. And I see now that they're collaborating with Marxists and leftists in the West that have taken over that language, that attacking civilians is part of a bigger resistance program against colonialism and injustice. So they are spreading this Islamist or this terrorist jihad, so-called jihad, which is terrorism, but they call it jihad to give it spiritual power, um, which is hijacking Islam totally. And that's why I'm active to remind them that this is not jihad, this is terror. According to all Islamic sources, this is terrorism. So this is not a war waged with soldier against soldier. This is
I
not a word,
thank
where
you.
if the counterparty says, I don't attack you, you have to stop. It's
Mm.
you cannot attack someone who says, I surrender. This is jihad. Terror is not jihad. That's never has been a jihad.
Yeah. I have a quick question to Anila. She has a lot of insights into this. Anila, the jihad is being propagated and proliferated by Islamic Muslim civic organizations in the United States. How can we disassociate ourselves from the jihad that Salima is talking about and the jihad that is happening in our own capitals, in our own cities?
Yes. Well, first of all, Soraya, thanks for asking that question. But that has been our struggle for the past 25 years that you and I have been on the ground fighting. We're fighting for the Islam that we grew up with, that we knew was was the Sufi Islam, like Imama Salima is saying. Had this jihad, I think, been, the violent jihad, been not hijacked, then imagine like 600 years of Muslim leaders. Imagine the Mughals. Imagine all the other dynasties. Wouldn't they have done this? They knew this was wrong. They knew the real meaning of jihad. I mean, imagine like we're all like from South Asia, and we were told Islam, jihad is that internal struggle. It's when you're thinking about should I lie to my mom? Yes, I came late or something. Should I lie to my mother? Or, should I tell this, should I, cheat? I mean, these are the internal struggles, good versus bad, but it's been hijacked not just by the Muslim Brotherhood, I would say, Mama. It has been hijacked by many other terrorist organizations that want to use it. So, Suraya, our struggle on the ground in America is with a international terrorist organization. So no matter what we do in our small nonprofit spaces, we cannot compete with that ideological poisoning that they have done in the mosques in America, and also the money, the billions of dollars that have been coming into Southern California mosques, right? The LA mosque, Soraya. Okay, finally the Saudis, took away the money and tried to clean it up, but we still have CARE/Muslim Brotherhood there. I mean, most of our mosques, wherever CARE goes to raise money, and CARE is the supposed to be the Muslim voice, it's a camouflage for Muslim Brotherhood. They are not for Muslims. They don't care about our civil rights. They use it as a recruiting tool as to raise money. And what do? They do what Imama's saying. They want to have that violent jihad. The violence you saw yesterday in New York outside the synagogue, it's violating free speech. Everyone has the right. The synagogue, religious freedom, they violated religious freedom. They are going against American values. And, that's the scary part, that they are winning. And I thank the Texas governor for having taken decisive action. And he has banned CARE and Muslim Brotherhood from Texas. And I know that we only have the chance to take them down is in 1 year. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Thank you. What we see, Salima, is a level of Arab hatred. The Arab revolts, the pan-Arab movements, that has been sold to us Americans, as a normalization of hatred towards the Jews. You said you're from Morocco, and Morocco has always had exceptional relationships with Israel and the Jewish people. Can you tell us about Morocco's stance, and has Morocco banned the Muslim Brotherhood, who is legitimizing jihad?
Morocco has a very unique position in the world because if you look at Morocco's history, especially when you look at the former king of Morocco, Hassan II, he has done a very active program to block the Muslim Brotherhood from entering his country. Morocco has their own traditions. We have our own Islamic universities, Al Qarawin, and we don't need any Muslim Brotherhood organizations in Morocco. So in the 80s, he did a really tough, aggressive attack on anything that had to do with Muslim Brotherhood, because in that era, in Algeria, the Muslim Brotherhood had a lot of power. Algeria decolonized from France, and after that, they had a little Islamic education because of that, because they had like more than a century of France colonialism. So they didn't really know what Islam was. And they made one very major mistake. I heard this from an Algerian intellectual, a woman that I've talked to in Paris. And she told me the mistake that they made was that they took professors and educators from Algeria. They invited them to come, sorry, from Egypt. They invited them to come to Morocco. And
We see that.
these ulama from Egypt were Muslim Brotherhood ulama. Egypt is infected. It's like it has a cancer of Muslim Brotherhood, especially in that time. They came to Algeria and they radicalized the whole Algerian generation. So from then, a bloody civil war started where they started just killing people. They started like slaughtering people that didn't, Sufis, people that didn't agree with their ideology. It was a very big, dangerous situation for Algeria. Now I think they are stabilizing. But in that time, when Muslim Brotherhood took over Algeria, they practically destroyed the country. So Morocco didn't want this. So Hassan II worked very hard to remove any influence from Muslim Brotherhood. And they had a lot of, they were actively like trying to convince young, vulnerable men, students. They tried to pull them to their cause by telling them, the television is haram, music is haram, you should not go to school, you should just go in the wilderness and preach. They had this ideological image of the Islamic State and where everything was perfect and they needed to join. So it was like a hippie movement, but a very dangerous hippie movement. So they use the Muslim Brotherhood's qualities is that they try to target young, vulnerable people. They don't target people like us. They go after young people. And that is the problem. They're still doing that. Now they're targeting with a flotilla, of which I heard that the flotilla was financed by the Muslim Brotherhood. They're targeting Western activists, young, vulnerable, Greta Thunberg,
Samina,
Western
what
activists.
you are saying is playing right before our own eyes on our streets. And I just feel, I spoke to a lawyer a few months ago. I said, protect us from this extremism, moderate Muslims. We have to file a case that our government has failed us. So what you are saying is what is happening in this great nation of America, who have given the Muslim Brotherhood and the Muslim Brotherhood-led organizations a free pass. And that's what Anila was just mentioning also. And it's egregious. So before we go to the topic, I want Elena to play this short video coming. There's so much to talk, but let's watch this video for a second. Elena?
Many teens around the world, you may not have the funds to afford it. Then you realize there's an option. So you grab a knife, head straight to the nearest Israeli, and attempt to stab them for 4 years of free
Elena,
tuition.
we don't see the video.
You're hearing me
Anila,
correctly.
do you?
For Palestinians, free tuition to universities is just one of the many expensive rewards given for committing acts of terrorism against Israelis.
Elena, we're not able to see the video.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the video about, Soraya?
It's about the pay for slay, our topic, what is happening.
So on that, I could share my own experience. You know, as I was doing Imama, I was doing this program.
Imagine this. You are a teenager with dreams, going to university, but like many teens around the world, you may not have the funds to afford it.
We
Then
can't
you
see the
realize
video.
there's an option. Okay.
So we were doing this program called Olive Tree Initiative, bringing Muslim, Jewish, Christian kids together and then taking them to Israel, teaching them about the conflict, how to understand it, and multiple perspectives. So we went to meet the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah, and then we went to Jenin. And when I was in Jenin, you know, I was looking for answers for myself as well, because I am a Muslim and I wanted to make sure that I have spoken to them, that I have seen what it's like. I saw these big posters with kids who had been taken by Muslim Brotherhood, and they were asking for children for jihad. 15,000 for an under 16-year-old and 25,000 for an adult. And, you know, I was like, I wanted to take my phone out and take a picture, but we weren't allowed. They watch you. And, you know, we talk about Israel. The Palestinian Authority does not allow you to be free at all. And I couldn't take a picture. I looked at it again, and I knew in my heart, that's it. Like, they are not true to their own people. If you can take a child, your own, and that's how you treat life, and you say you're going in the name of Allah, you are desecrating Allah. And so you know, that's what
You are a teenager with dreams of going to university, but like many teens around the world, you may not have the funds to afford it. Then you realize
you can turn that off. Okay. So that was my experience.
Okay, so there's so much to talk, but let's get back on the topic, you know. I want to be fair by what is told from the Palestinians, you know. Palestinians say that these are necessary social safety nets, and therefore we have to pay these families who have lost their children. And you might know this case where in February 1994, Baruch Goldstein, an American-Israeli physician, an extremist on the far-right ultra-Zionist movement, carried out a mass shooting of Palestinians who were praying at the Cave of the Patriarch, the Abraham Mosque in Hebron. But the difference is the Israeli government condemned it as a terrorist act, and it was quick to call that out. But why is it that we are not seeing that from the Palestinian Authority? Is it because they have they're tied to Hamas, or what is happening there? That why aren't they condemning it but paying and incentivizing it? Salima, Imam?
Well, I think Israel made a lot of mistakes as well, because Israel was the one that funded Hamas in its early stage, because they thought that by funding Hamas, they would limit the power of the PLO, which at that time was their opposition, not Hamas. So they made the mistake that a lot of Western countries did in the Middle East that funded radicalism. It happened before. When, for example, the West started to fund the Wahhabis, they chose the Wahhabis to be their partners and helped the Wahhabis to radicalize the whole Islamic world by promoting Salafi schools that had like a not so friendly kind of Islam. So I think the West and also Israel made a lot of mistakes, and they are not without, a fault. So I think it's important to be fair to both groups. The Israelis made a lot of mistakes. They chose for presidents former terrorists became Israeli presidents. This was in the past, but I wanted to say that the problem is more complex than just black and white. But we are now in this moment, and this moment is that I think there is an international threat of radical Islam that is starting in Palestine, and it's spreading all over the world. I read a short piece from the article that you sent me, and it was that the Muslim Brotherhood is trying to use Palestine as an emotional kind of bug to radicalize Muslims all over the world, especially in the West. So they don't really care about Palestine, but they're using that Palestinian issue to get more power. So we as Muslims that want to fight for peace, I'm very pro-Palestinian. I'm very much pro-Palestinian. I have here in my house an SOS bottle from a Palestinian child from Gaza, and I feel a lot of responsibility towards that child to work for peace. So I think if we want to work for peace, we should not choose sides. We should not say, I'm only pro-Israel or I'm only pro-Palestine. We need to be pro-peace. So, because only when you really work for pro-peace, you can actually de-radicalize both groups. Because a lot of Palestinian radical groups, they think, well, if I become radical, I will have more international support. The people that work for peace in Palestine are not getting the attention in the world as the radical groups, the people that go to the universities and yell, intifada, intifada, they get a lot more followers than people that are on the ground here in Palestine working for peace. So I think we as the international community have a responsibility to support both sides that work for peace and not support the radicals.
Anila, you want to make a...
No, you're absolutely right. I think, obviously, if you're on the side of peace, if you care for the Palestinian children, that is what you're going to do. You're not going to want them to be in a perpetual cycle of violence. Use them and say, oh, that's it. Their lives are committed to our Hamas, manifesto, and that's it. No, you want them to live the same life as your children. And that's what the Hamas, the leadership has billions of dollars. They're living there in luxury, their families. And that's what one of the Palestinian from Gaza, he had run against Hamas, had told me. He had said that, look, even my wife and children are in Paris. And all the Hamas leaders, their children and wives have luxurious apartments, and in Europe they live in luxury, but they take all the money from the people. So when I heard that, I felt the same way. And I think if you are on the side of peace, you will want peace for the Palestinians, not this resistance, not this, cries of, oppression. No, the oppression in the Palestinian minds is here. We must remove it, because I do feel, Imama, and I want you to talk about Islam empowers. Islam doesn't want us. I mean, if we look at our own prophet's life, he was making peace treaties.
Yes.
There were wars, and I obviously history proves that, but at the same time, the goal was always, let's make peace. Let's bring in people of the book. Let's bring in even the pagans and make peace.
Yes.
Killing, war, death. These are all words that Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood they have glorified it, and they have really adulterated the whole message of Islam. But more than what we're talking about, I want to know your struggles as well, as you tried to take this, imamat and leadership in the Muslim community as a woman. What happened?
That's a long story. I actually, when I started out, the moment that I met Soraya, I was an activist just like her. I wanted to enlighten Islam in the Netherlands because I saw that so many people believed things that I thought were backwards, and I wanted to create a national movement of enlightened Islam, and I wanted the Dutch politicians to help me with it. But I soon found out that Dutch politicians actually were very good friends with Muslim Brotherhood organizations. And they saw me not as a friend, but most of them saw me very critically. They didn't want to work with me because their Muslim Brotherhood friends warned them that they should not connect with me. So I became very much disappointed with these feminist women working together with Muslim Brotherhood and fighting against me. So when that happened, I realized that my power was not activism, although I do have a law, just like Soraya, I'm a lawyer, I'm professional law person, but I realized that in my situation now, I'm an artist. I work as an avant-garde imam. I work with art, and I thought that, well, I'm looking for to create an enlightened Islam. But what is enlightened? What is enlightenment for me? Because the West is enlightened. Still, here you see these radical people on the left and the right. So obviously, the Enlightenment has not really set root, not even in Europe. So, what is enlightenment? And I believe that to find enlightenment, I need to go back to my roots, which is Sufi Islam. And Sufi Islam has a long tradition where Sufis look for Allah. It's an intention that you put out into the world and you look for Allah. And I made that the aim of my life as an artist and as an imam. For 10 years, I've been looking for Allah in all kinds of ways. And this brought me into a whole new world of experiences because I was opening myself to to Allah. I was also opening myself to mystical experiences and mystical knowledge, not knowledge that would be like objective. So that mystical knowledge has brought me to the understanding that the problem is not outside, the problem is not Hamas, the problem is not the settlers in the West Bank, the problem is not Palestine or Israel or the Muslim Brotherhood. I focused the problem that it's me, I'm the problem. That was my deepest realization, that my soul, that the human soul in general is the problem. That's why we are in this. And for me, the only way to do jihad, because I wanted to do something with this, because first, if you realize, once you get into the realization that you are the problem, that the problem is not outside of you, it's not the Muslim Brotherhood, it's not the Dutch government that wants to work with the Muslim Brotherhood, because then you're putting the power outside of yourself, and it can be very frustrating. So I have a lot of respect for you guys for doing this for so long, because I know how frustrating that is to see, like, you want to do something good, but there's so many forces working against you. Once I embraced like the path of the Sufi, I discovered that all the powers lies within myself. I can make decisions that are very powerful. And after a long time of looking for Allah, I can explain that, but I don't think you have the time or the context to hear that out, because I had a mystical journey. But that journey led me to the realization that the problem is not Israel. Seen from a Sufi perspective, from a Sufi personal journey, the problem is not Israel. It's also not the Palestinians. The problem is me. I need to be more peaceful. I need to be more at peace. I need to work for peace. I need to connect with people. I need to work with connection. So that's why I started, talking with people like you. I started talking about my experience, my knowledge from a Sufi perspective, that we need to focus on peace. We should not focus on being pro this or pro that, or worry a lot about Cairo or the power of the Muslim Brotherhood, because that's in a way a victim mentality. When you put yourself in that energy, it's like you are a victim. And I don't see myself as a victim, because I believe we follow the true Islam. We follow Allah. We have Allah backing us up. So we should not feel like victims. And I feel that when I get into this empowered state, of feeling, okay, I'm following Allah, and this is what Allah is telling me: work for peace. And don't worry about the rest, just work for peace. And I feel that once I walk on that path, I can't do everything at the same time. I'm just following my own path and working for peace. And I see that everything starts to make sense. I talk to the right people, I connect with people, I meet people, and it's a slower journey. It's not, you're not getting clicks or attention in the media or whatever, but it's the for me, it feels like the only peaceful journey that I want to walk in. And I got, I now have a Palestinian girl that just messaged me that I'm going to have a call with Arab Palestinian children that live in Israel that want to talk with me because they want to learn about a new kind of Islam, because in their country they don't have a lot of Islamic diversity. So I'm going to tell them about my Islam and how my Islam has brought me into these realizations of working for peace. And people that are now in Cairo, they think that they're doing the jihad. They think that what they're doing is real, but they didn't work on themselves first. I worked for 2 years after the 7th of October. I've been working on myself, waging the big jihad on myself. I was confronting all my demons because I saw the victims in Gaza. I became very angry. I really subjected myself to a lot of trauma in Gaza. I saw all the babies, I saw all the dead people. So I was getting very, very angry. And I used that in part of my story. So when a PLO peace activist, not a peace, but when a student activist comes to me and says, "Free Palestine," I will tell them, I have experienced everything that you're experiencing, but this is where I am now, and I want to help you to go there because you're now sitting in your victim energy. You cannot stay endlessly in your victim activism, free, free Palestine, free, free. You cannot do that endlessly. It's not powerful. So I try to have dialogue also with people on all kinds of sides. And I see that I had dialogues with pro-Palestinian activists in Amsterdam, and I was wearing my Israeli and Palestinian shawl. And they came to me and they started to have dialogue with me. And I was educating them, about how complex it is.
Mm. This morning, I was talking to an Israeli Jew. She was talking about this concept of tatbiya, the anti-normalization. The Palestinians are told you can't normalize relationships with Israel. You can't have relationships with Jewish people. And the Hamula, those are the religious leaders. I mean, it's so complex, Imam. I cannot even believe. I just have to really ask about what do we know. So it's like there is a system that is geared not to make peace with Israel.
Yes.
That is a fact. That is undisputed. So because now, when coming back to our topic, when even if I have to leave my position, I will not compromise on the salary. That is the ravatib of the martyr, the shaheed or a prisoner. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas said on the official Fatah Facebook, reaffirming his commitment to paying terrorists for their terror. And this is terror. This is not a doubt about it, because we know the story of Bashar Masalha, who in 2016 stabbed 11 people in Tel Aviv, right? And one such person he killed was Taylor Force. There's the Taylor Force Act, where now we are looking deeply at how to stop this. But even though the Israeli police killed Masalha, his relatives are now receiving monthly payments. So there is this galvanizing force within Hamas and within Palestine, within the West Bank, within the leadership, who have no interest in any coexistence or peace. And then we here are talking about a two-state solution. We're talking about one-state solution. They don't want peace. So in this kind of environment, and rewarding people who kill the Jews, what are your words for the Palestinians? You said not to be victim. We've been saying that all along. What are your words for the Jews, and what are your words for us, people who are outside trying to work for peace?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I have a lot of empathy for the Palestinians. This conflict didn't start today. It's like 75 years old. And I think the Arab world made the mistake to fight against Israel as if Israel was a European colonial force. That's how they treated Israel. They didn't treat Israel as a group of natives that originally came from that region and want to come back. They had a very different approach. So the Jews were not going anywhere because they were refugees themselves. You know, they were killed in Europe. They later on they were kicked out of the Arab countries. So they had no other place to go except that. So they were not colonists. You know, they were there because they had no other place and they had legitimate, you know, connections with that land. So that was the fault of the Arab world. This is not the fault of the Palestinians, because at that time the Palestinians did not really exist. They were just living there, and they didn't know exactly what was happening. There was like Hajj Amin that was put to power by the colonial force, the European colonial force at that time. They chose him as the Mufti. He was not, you know, educated enough to become a Mufti, but Europe made him a Mufti. And they thought that if they put this radical into power, that he would become more peaceful. Again, you know, the West made the mistake to empower the radical. They should not have chosen the Mufti al-Amini to put him into power, but they did. And he created a lot of radicalism afterwards. You know, a lot of radical organizations that are currently in existence, like the Muslim Brotherhood, are inspired by Amini. So to go back to the PLO, I think the PLO has a lot of responsibility, and I think that their responsibility is to be a true force for peace. And I'm afraid that they don't want to change their agenda. I'm afraid that they're not really interested in peace. I think Palestinians, normal Palestinians, that they are interested in peace, because I talked to a friend of mine, an Israeli peace activist, and he told me that the people in Gaza were anti-Hamas. They did not support the Hamas ideology. So Hamas is at this moment is holding the people of Gaza in a prison. You know, Hamas is not at this moment supported by the Gazans. And the PLO is still supporting terrorism. So I wrote, I think the Muslim world, Muslim leaders need to hold them accountable. I don't think that we do that enough. I don't think that imams in the world do that enough. So that's why after my realizations that I need to be the change, because other people will not change. You need to change. So my step into being the change that I want to see in the world, I wrote a letter to Mahmoud Abbas. If you want, I can read it.
Yes, please do.
In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, merciful, the most merciful, peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad, the seal of messengers. Your Excellency President Mahmoud Abbas, may peace, mercy, and blessings of Allah be upon you. I write to you as a servant of Allah and as a fellow believer who carries deep concern for the spiritual and moral direction of our Ummah, and especially for the dignity, unity, and well-being of the Palestinian people under your leadership. Mr. President, you have carried the weight of a historic responsibility to lead a wounded nation towards justice and freedom. Yet leadership before Allah requires not only political courage, but moral clarity, rooted in the divine command for justice and compassion. It is from this sacred duty that I address you today. As a servant of Allah and a messenger of his guidance, I write to you with urgency regarding the pay-for-slay policy that continues to provide financial rewards for acts of violence against human beings. Islam teaches that life is sacred and that the taking of an innocent life is among the gravest sins. The Quran declares, whoever kills a soul, unless for a soul or for corruption in the land, which equates to terrorism, it is as if he had slain mankind entirely. Surah Al-Ma'idah 5:32. This divine command leaves no space for moral compromise. Killing the innocent, whether Israeli, Palestinian, or any human soul, is forbidden. Rewarding such acts financially contradicts the very foundation of justice, mercy, and accountability that Allah has made binding upon every leader. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "The most beloved of people to Allah on the day of judgment and the closest to him will be just leaders." Al-Muwatta. Mr. President, this hadith reminds us that the path to divine closeness lies in justice, not in political expediency, revenge, or worldly pressure. A policy that incentivizes killing, even under the banner of national struggle, harms the moral soul of Palestine and distances it from the mercy of Allah. As a female imam, I speak from a deep love for the Palestinian people, who deserve lives of dignity, security, and prosperity. I know your heart longs for their freedom, but also know that true liberation cannot come from policies that harm the innocent or glorify the taking of life. Therefore, I respectfully call upon you, President Abbas, to re-examine and end any system that provides financial rewards for violence, to lead by example of justice taught by the Prophet, may peace be upon him, to redirect funds towards peaceful development, agriculture, education, and employment that uplift Palestinian families and honor the security, the sanctity of life. You have the opportunity to stand in history not only as a political leader, but as a just leader before Allah. One who has the courage to realign policy with the eternal values of Islam. Let Palestine rise, not by the sword, but by the power of justice, creativity, and divine guidance. May Allah guide you, strengthen your heart, and bless you with the wisdom to lead your people towards peace and righteousness. With respect and sincere prayer, Salima al-Musalima.
Beautiful. Wow. We will help you circulate that letter. Did you hear back from him?
No.
Okay.
I did
When
not.
did you write?
I wrote this letter on 23rd of October.
Okay. Okay. You know, Imam Salima, this is something you said that really touched me, which I've been saying also, not as eloquently as yours. The Arab world has to take a responsibility in two senses. One is they treated the Jews like colonizers, European colonizers, and went to war with them. All they were asking for that little piece of land in their ancestral land, right? A state. There were no nations. Another thing that I want you to talk about is in Islam, the Quran is very clear. If one bends towards peace, you have to make peace.
Yes.
Why have the Arabs failed to grasp that? Why have they gone so much for war with the Jewish people?
I wish I knew the exact reason, but I think it's a lack of leadership. I think the Palestinian leadership, and I'm also talking about the Muslim leadership, because the Mufti of Jerusalem, the one that preaches on the Al-Aqsa, which is the third holy sacred place in Islam, he supports the terrorists. You know, he supports what PLO is doing. So I think the whole system that Arafat created is not a healthy system. It creates this vacuum of radicalization, supporting martyrs that killed themselves, which it goes against Islam. It's not allowed to kill yourself. Suicide is forbidden in Islam. Killing innocent people is forbidden in Islam. They created this whole bubble of the so-called Palestinian society where terrorism has become so normalized that people think it's a daily part of resistance. In the meantime, the PLO leaders have become billionaires. If you look at Arafat, his daughter is living like queen in Versailles, in London, in Paris. She has billions. That money comes from the innocent Palestinian people. So they have this broken society, these poor people in Palestine, but the leaders are living like kings in Qatar and things. So the political leadership is rewarded. You know, they are rewarded for the radicalism and the violence and all of that. And the one thing that they can show to the world are the Palestinian victims. So they need to perpetuate the victims, because that's the only way they will get support and get more money. So more victims means more money for Hamas and more money for PLO. So this becomes a vicious circle that the more victims there are, the richer they become, the more powerful they become. So it keeps them alive.
I know. You know, Ismail Haniyeh, 4 billion. Khalid Mashal, 4 billion. Musa Abu Marzouk, 3 billion. This is our money. International world has fed this terrorists. So what is sad is, Imam Salima, that these people have used Islam to perpetuate terror, not to advance peace. They
Yes.
use our faith. You know, the Al-Aqsa flood that happened October 7th. Al-Aqsa is a holy site. Flood means continuous flow of blood when they decided to use women and children. And the silence of organizations like the OIC, Organization for Islamic Cooperation, 56 Muslim nations, and other nations. What do we do? I feel so helpless in the face of this organized level of anti-Islamic activity, legitimized.
Yes. I think the only thing we can do is on an individual level is to work for peace. I think that is, and to work for from our prophet, when he was in Mecca, he had very powerful adversaries. He had to run away. He was a refugee. He didn't fight back. He ran away for his life. And later on, Islam developed based upon its morals. It became stronger, not because it was strong, because Islam was just a group of refugees and slaves and women. They were not very powerful in the beginning. Khadija was the only very rich person in that group. She was the only one that could feed the early Muslims. So if you look at the success of Islam originally, the success in the beginning, it didn't come from power. It came from moral values, because that's how they won over so many other people that became Muslims, because they saw the moral superiority. And this is, for us, the only way we can win is we win by the moral superiority. We have the moral high ground. The PLO cannot say that they have the moral high ground because they support the killing of innocent people. This is not Islam. Everybody can see this.
Right.
So if we need to choose which way to go, what is the future of Islam? I feel like the path we are going is the future of Islam, because we have the moral high ground. We don't support killing terrorists. If you have these Palestinian activists that are saying that killing innocent people is resistance, they're not going to get the moral high ground, because if you support that, if you support killing civilians, you will support worldwide terrorism. Everybody will take power into their own hands. Everybody that disagrees with someone will kill them, because that's how to put resistance. That's not a resistance in the name of Islam. That's resistance in the name of terrorism.
Yes, yes,
So we need to speak out. We need
yes.
to speak. Muslim leaders specifically need to speak out.
Right, right. I read somewhere you saying that you went to a conference of imams, female imams in Europe, and then Morocco has emboldened and has paved a path for female imams, I think. Can you just tell a little bit of that? Because for all I know, we will be delegitimized for even having this conversation because you are women. We are women. My friend Saran Artis, who started the Women's Mosque in Berlin, she has 24-hour security. Because she wants this. I cannot even explain this anymore, but tell us the trends that's happening in Europe and Morocco so that we can take a heart and move forward with hope.
Well, the good thing about Morocco is that it has very good leadership in the form of our king. Mohammed Sadis is a very, he has a strong vision for Morocco, and he's working on that. And a lot of Moroccans are very, they are very nationalists. We love our country. So we will do everything to create a success for our country. And the Moroccan king took the conscious decision of supporting Israel. We support the Palestinians as well. We had a long history of supporting Palestinians financially and politically. But now Morocco finds it's time to have a different approach. We want to support also Israelis, because the old path didn't work. If we think about more than 70 years of hatred, it didn't provide peace for the Palestinians. So now we have started to work on the Abraham Accords, and other people, other countries are joining in the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords is a new vision where we work together instead of fighting against each other. And Israel is only a part of a bigger coalition of Arabs working together. Because even Arabs among themselves, even without Israel, they were working against each other. You had Gaddafi that was funding terrorists in the Western Sahara to fight against Moroccans. So Arab countries were fighting against each other. And when Morocco finally gained, the rights over the Western Sahara, which was Moroccan for centuries before it was colonized by Spain, when finally we got the acknowledgement by the United Nations, Israel, Netanyahu, gave, the felicitations. He said congratulations to Morocco. And he supported Morocco. But Mahmoud Abbas and Hamas didn't say anything. They didn't support us. So Israel is a good friend of Morocco. We know that. And we are good friends of Israel. So we want to collaborate and also promote peaceful activists within Palestine. I try to do that as much as possible to promote the peaceful voices within Palestine, because that's the only way to get into a solution. And I think the solution is possible. I am actually have a vision about Palestine. I think in the future it will become a federation together with Israel. It will become a federal, collaborative country, and it will work with AI, artificial intelligence, to reach a kind of coexistence between the two countries. And that will actually be very good thing for the Palestinians, because Palestine will become very rich. You see all the trouble now, but the future, if they start collaborating with Israel, they will become even better than Dubai. They will become connected with a very powerful country. Israel is the biggest startup country in the world. So when they start working together with Israel, it will create not only economical bloom, but also spiritual bloom. A lot of Palestinians know Hebrew. A lot of Hebrews know Arab. I think it will become a new revolution, a new enlightenment of the Arab world, just like we had it more than 1,000 years ago. That was because we collaborated with the Jews in that time. And I think if we start collaborating and instead of fighting against the Jews, it will happen again, because the Jews have always been a part of Arabic success. Whenever you look at the Arabs having success, the Jews were part of it. If I look at my own history, Moroccan success has always been in collaboration with Moroccan Jews.
Beautiful. I love your vision. Wow.
So that is what I support. And I hope that the Palestinian leaders will see the possibilities instead of just focus on the terrorism, because they never won. They only have more victims. It's not, Israel is not going anywhere. They will not win. So they can get so much more success if they just change the vision.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm so heartened. You give us so much hope, and you give me so much hope on a personal level. I think Israel is more challenged today in the West than the Middle East. I hope your AI-driven vision, where Palestinians and Jews collaborate and Palestine shines, more than Dubai, is the vision that I hold too. So we must get to work. Normalization must be normal, and we must use time well. We don't know the outcomes, but we can dream big. No one does. Nothing is promised to us. Last words for you. What do you want from American diaspora Palestinians?
Okay. I think I actually have an American activist, diaspora Palestinian friend that I met during the conference of the women imam in Brussels. And I think she had a very, good vision. She was a good woman, but I think they need better ideas. I think that they are too much stuck in the tunnel vision of Arafat. They need to let go of the tunnel vision of Arafat and see that that was not a successful vision. They need to let go of Arafat and have their own creative new ideas that are, there are now, Israelis saying we can do the United Emirates of Palestine. We can do the Abraham Accords with Palestinian sheikhs. I think that's a good start. I think that's a good start. So they need to get out of the of the resistance and fighting with stones that Arafat taught them, and look at a different vision where they are taking control of their own lives.
Thank you so much, Imam Salima. May your voice be carried furthest and as far as it can be, because you give us such hope and light. I hope you will be the MLK of the female imams in this world who can really galvanize a better future for every one of us, particularly the Palestinians and the Jewish people who have so much love in their hearts to give the world. Thank you. Be blessed, and we will be in touch. Thank you, inshallah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.